All right, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm going to tell you a little bit about West Elm, though most of you seem to know it well. And then I'll specifically describe the part of the organization that I work on, and then I'm going to round it out just telling you about my path, because it is, as you probably gleaned from that, an alternative path to the position that I have. So I've been at West Elm since October of 2013. So West Elm was started in 2002 in Brooklyn, and contrary to what many people think, we were actually seeded through Williams-Sonoma Inc., which is our parent company. We're a brand that's a division of Williams-Sonoma Inc. that owns Pottery Barn Kids, Williams-Sonoma. But we're started in Brooklyn to really seed this original design, something that was unique from what the other brands had. But we have a lot of autonomy. We operate here. Our corporate headquarters are on the West Coast, but the brand headquarters are based in Brooklyn, in Dumbo. And today, we have about 70 stores in the U.S. and internationally. A large portion of our sales come from our online, from our website and catalogs. And if you walked into a West Elm store like 5 or 6 years ago, this might look familiar, but you wouldn't really know much about the provenance of a lot of the products or where they came from or the potential impact that they had. So you might see all of these products, but you wouldn't really know much about the story behind them. And about 5 years ago, the current brand president, Jim Brett, joined. And at the time, West Elm was really a furniture store. It was a brown box furniture store. And he saw, and it was not performing as strongly as it could have been, he saw the opportunity to really turn it into a lifestyle brand. And he saw the collaborations with artisans that the design team was doing, and saw the opportunity to really make that a huge part of the business and infuse some soul into the brand. So 5 or 6 years ago, all of this work was kind of in the background. It was happening. A lot of these things have been in the DNA of the brand since its beginning, but you wouldn't have really seen it necessarily in the presence in the store. For example, if you look at that pillow, you can't see all the details, but the pillows on the couch, what the story that you wouldn't have known behind them is that those are produced in cooperation with a cooperative of women in rural Bihar. It's a sericulture operation, so they teach them how to raise the silk cocoons, spin the silk. It's then woven, it's actually blended with cotton, down pillows, and then loomed and taken to a cut and sew facility in Delhi. And that's our solid silk hand-loomed pillows. So it's this really amazing success story of working with rural women's cooperatives and bringing their products to market. And that's something that even today, if you go into the store, you may or may not see, because that is one of our core carryover products. It's not necessarily marketed as artisanal, but it provides an important form of employment for women. And we started working with them, I think, in about 2009 was the first order. So generally, orders are about 12 to 18 month development process. And these were the numbers that I'd gotten from the group. We placed, our initial order was around 8,000 to 9,000 pillows in 2009. And then in 2013, it was 160,000 pillows. So I think that really speaks to the opportunity of working with artisans, the opportunity for scale, and the opportunity for long-term sustained relationships. And so these are kind of some of the concepts behind the work that we're doing. But if you come into a West Elm store 6 years ago, if you'd encountered the brand, there would be very little visibility into this, even though it was ingrained already in what the brand was doing. But the current president really is his vision for how the brand will continue to drive employment for people in low-income communities, bring these traditional techniques into the store, and then offer our consumers something that's really differentiated. So I have a little video, let's see, about, though it seems that you all know it, but hopefully there'll be some content in here, because I think our entire design team is located in Brooklyn too, and what this shows is the product development cycle. It's a 12 to 18 month product development cycle. We have a sourcing team. We don't own any of our production, one facility in the US, but it's all through third-party manufacturers, but our sourcing team manages that out of here. So all of that operation happens here.
This is West Elm.
How great is it to be here now?
We were born and reborn in Brooklyn, but we've got our eyes on the world. We're part of the revered Williams-Sonoma Inc. That makes us disruptors with a distinctive heritage.
Have an 8-month really peak life.
2015 is going to be a great year for West Elm.
We take a whole new approach to design for the home, in our stores and online. We've committed to 3 principles to guide everything we do. We are creating an incredible range of thoughtful products for every taste. Everything we make is dreamed up right here in Brooklyn, but designed for your home. We specialize in style, your style. We're making design accessible, with services that go above and beyond, and prices that make every customer feel at home. We're driven by a commitment to the neighborhoods where we open up shop, the network of designers and makers the world over.
We got involved with West Elm through an Etsy pop-up shop.
This grant's gonna be huge for our business.
And the virtual spaces we all share. And we're proving that you can do well as a business and good as people. Our impact sourcing initiatives directly affect so many lives. We're connecting our customers to communities across the globe. We're the only home retailer in the respected Fairtrade USA network.
I love West Elm. They're one of our partners. They source from Haiti, they source from African countries you work in. They're doing great.
And with our partners at the Clinton Global Initiative, we've made and met a very real investment in global handcrafts. We're loved by experts.
These are from West Elm.
You know what? I'm ordering from West Elm this weekend because everybody else is, and I don't want to be left out.
And those core commitments are the secret of our success. We're one of the fastest growing brands in the country. And the future holds more. Global growth, good business, and of course, great design. We are West Elm. And we love the way you live.
So really, what I'm here to talk to you about are the initiatives that we call Consciousness, and that's the division that I run at West Elm. And specifically, that's broken into 3 different categories. So one is handcrafted. So as you saw there, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, we made a 2013 public commitment through the Clinton Global Initiative to increase our sourcing of handcrafted. And that was the point that I really joined the team because of my background in helping artisan businesses scale. And the entry point, so handcrafted, increasing our handcraft purchases by partnering with sustainable artisan businesses and continuing to invest in them so that they can build their capacity to serve us better. Improving the lives of the artisans that we work with and investing in education. I'll tell you how that arose. Supply chain transparency, so partnering with respected third-party organizations to verify the labor conditions in factories and an additional premium that goes back to improve workers' lives, and sustainability. And so I'm going to talk about each of those initiatives. If people also have questions, feel free to jump in as well, but I'm going to go through each of those. So the handcrafted piece, so again, it's something, as you saw with the pillows, the silk pillows, it's something that's been ingrained in the brand for a long time. 2008, 2009 were some of the first collaborations with artisan groups that we were doing. In 2013, we made this large public commitment. Do people know what the Clinton Global Initiative is? Or okay. So it's this public forum, you're held publicly accountable to raise the level to 35 million, and we actually reached that within 1 year, which was really exciting. And we work with over 35 artisan groups in 15 countries around the world. So my initial task when I joined was really understanding what are the artisan groups that we work with, how do we work with them, what other resources do we need to be able to build their businesses sustainably, and this is just an outline of some of the areas where we work. Our largest handcraft countries are the US, India, and the Philippines. We do a lot of work in Haiti as well, and South and Central America are growing and emerging markets for us. So it's really about how do we find these relationships and continue to sustain the ones that function. And I think the thing that really made me want to come to West Elm, and that I think is really unique, is that it's integrated into the way that we do business. So rather than a standalone philanthropic component, it really is part of the regular product development process. And one thing that also I believe speaks to that is my position within the company, the Consciousness Initiatives, I report up through the sourcing chain. So that is the department that manages all the factory relationships and production. So you really need to have that in with the factory and the production to be able to make substantive change in that. So this is I don't remember what season this was, I think last fall, but just to show you how integrated it is. now, and how different the messaging is in a lot of ways from the earlier versions that I showed before. So on the left, I'll talk about that more, but those are paper mache heads from Haiti. We've been working with that vendor group since 2009, before the earthquake, long-standing relationship, continuously investing design and development resources. That means our design team will go spend some time with the vendor and with the artisans developing new products, and out of that, hopefully some will get selected. And Peru, Chulacanes, this is a newer group that we're working with, and that's Chulacanes pottery from the Piura region of Peru. It's a 2,000-year-old ceramics tradition there. Those are actually not glazed. They're fired in the pit with mango leaves and then burnished with the stones. The mango leaf gives it the blackened finish, and the burnishing gives it the shine. And it's this really amazing feat to have gotten those from the Peruvian highlands to West Elm stores everywhere. And also is an example of a product that was very popular. So, you know, the benefit of a large retailer is that you have the resources to invest in design and development, but that also you can try over the course of several seasons different combinations of products to really find the thing that's going to work and that's going to sustain. The goal is really to have these long-term sustainable relationships with artisan groups, but as I'll say later, even, you know, a small order can make a big impact for a lot of those groups. So, you know, one of the challenges of working with artisan groups is for all of this to be set up in the store, thousands of SKUs have to come from all over the world into a central warehouse at the same time, and that is a consistent challenge. So this is an example of one of the newer emerging groups, and I think a great example of small changes can have big impact. So it's Guatemala. This is a Mayan village just near Lake Atitlan. It's a subsistence farming community, so farming black beans, corn, what little extra they may have, which is not often, they'll sell in the local market. The women also weave for their own outfits, and again, if there's a little bit of extra, you might sell it in the local market to bring some income back to your family. Average income is $2 a day. On the left there, she's doing the mostacilla, the beadwork for the faja, the traditional belt, and our design team reinvented those as chain purses. And what was a relatively small order for West Elm was about 2,000 units, not tiny, but relatively small for holiday. I just reached back out to them recently and collected some information. That order represented about 70% of their expected annual earning. For the women. So that one order, and one of the women put a new roof on her house. So again, when we're thinking about long-term sustained relationships, that's one thing I've spent a lot of time thinking about. I think that is the ideal scenario, so that you can lift a community out of poverty, but even kind of small and finite projects can have a lasting effect on quality of life. Another woman her husband had diabetes and she couldn't work the field, so she'd taken her kids out of school to work the field, so the money allowed her to hire people to work her fields and put them back in school. And a third didn't have a latrine in her house and was able to build a latrine for the first time. So you can imagine the myriad health and other benefits of being able to have a waste system in your house. So I think this is a great example of that kind of impact. And again, if you went into a West Elm store, we're getting a lot better at marketing and messaging and bringing that information to consumers, but you may or may not know. And I think that is part of the success, that you'd buy it because it's a product that you love, that's designed well, and that sits in your home. And then on top of that, it has this other purpose behind it. So this is the group in Haiti, Caribbean Craft, and I'm going to show you about a video about them in a few minutes. But again, we started with paper mache heads. When President Clinton came to visit the West Elm office, I ran the numbers, like how many heads have we? How many heads have we sold? And it's something well over 30,000 over the course of the time that we've worked with them. And it's a really inspiring business to Haitian entrepreneurs, have a great design edge. They employ just over 300 artisans. And shortly after I started, the president of West Elm said, I really want to take it the next step and improve artisans' lives. And again, we talked a little bit, and I'll explain more about my nonprofit background, but really called on those resources, did investigation, and what are the things that really can have a measurable impact on your life. And one of them is financial access, especially if you're working. It makes a lot of sense in the work context to be able to have a bank account, to learn how to save. So we're thinking about that. We took a trip to Haiti, and what we found from the vendor is she was in the process of trying to get all of her artisans banked, because for her it was a huge risk with 300 artisans to be paying in cash in Haiti, and people would know when she'd end up having to change the pay dates, not tell people when they're getting paid. It's less than ideal. And from our standpoint too, you want that clarity of pay records as well. So she was trying to get them all banked and found that about 35 lacked the basic literacy to be able to manage an account. So they'd have other people read them their text messages, couldn't read their own prescriptions, couldn't sign their own pay stubs. So together with her, we started what is the pilot for what we are expanding to other locales for investment in education to improve artisans' lives. So together with her, and we found a local nonprofit implementation partner, we crafted a curriculum. So it really is a partnership. It's the NGO leading the school. We provided financing, and the vendor provides the space for the artisans to go, the time during the workday. It's seen as a benefit of employment, and so it creates more qualified employees who can also have better employment prospects. It's really kind of the basics of workforce development, and in turn, a more qualified vendor that can be a better supplier partner to us so that we can grow together. So that's been a really exciting program. We did it was a 6-month program. It started in March of 2014, and it just graduated in October, and was very successful. And we're actually doing a year-long program now that's also being backed by the Clinton Foundation, so they're interested in Haiti. So this is I took a picture of the board when I first went there in one of the first classes, just to show when we talk about basic literacy, it really is the very beginning of drawing letters. And the second course is going to go over basic literacy, numeracy, and some French, because it's the language of the elite, and so having access to that. So this is the graduating class, and I think this is the video.
Bat ka écrit créole. Vraiment, pour nous parler créole, il faut que tu écrit créole. Et en commencement, il n'est pas de faire bien. Parce que là, ils vont côté pour déception, ou pour humiliation. Parce que dès pour pas qu'on nous étudie, pour être capable d'apprendre.
Lord, I left your name on high. Lord, I left to sing you praises. You came from heaven to earth to show the world, from the earth to the cross, my debt to pay. From the cross to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Lord, I left your name on high.
Craft started in 2006, a company based in Haiti focusing on handicraft export. We've been actually one of the number one importer for the United States in craft from Haiti. I really care about the artisans. I think they're very talented, and I feel that they should not be isolated or not be able to take care of themselves. When West Elm started working in Haiti, they came down to see us, and they wanted to see how they could be more involved into the artisan's life.
West Elm in 2013 made a commitment through the Clinton Global Initiative to increase its sourcing of handcraft. We picked Haiti because of the high need for literacy and the possibility of impact. We felt like it was really a place where we could improve artisans' lives. And so over the last 6 months, we've been running a literacy course at Caribbean Crafts. Every concept of basic literacy, from learning the alphabet, learning how to sign your name, learning how to draw letters. What we've seen is it's been an incredibly positive response, and at this point now they can read their own prescriptions, read their own text messages. There's a facility with numbers. We really believe that investing in projects like these have a broader impact.
Au lieu de bailler mon poisson, plutôt apprendre ni pêcher. Donc c'est dans ce sens, parce que au lieu de distribuer comme bailler mon etc., ils plutôt mettre bagaille dans la tête. C'est une façon pour rendre libre et indépendant, autonome, pour être capable de produire lui-même. Si nous investissons dans l'alphabétisation, dans l'éducation en général, pour permettre tout le monde de lire, c'est son force de développement.
Là, je fais une je travaille, toujours continuer à travailler. Et puis là, je vais de mon côté pour ne pas marrer. Et je connaître ça, pour me partager. Et non seulement c'est ma famille seulement, pour tout le monde sur le quartier.
Everything that they learn in school, they don't keep it to themselves because they're so empowered. They reach out to someone in the community who didn't know how to read and write to share it with them.
We see this really as a long-term sustainable solution to building relationships and investing in the communities where we work.
So, that just was the beginning, that was the first pilot project of this continued investment in education. And we chose education also because it's so broad. It can be basic literacy, personal financial literacy, vocational training, but really felt that our biggest impact would be if we worked within what we already do, which is these business relationships. So how do we work to invest in the lives of the people making our products and the artisans working there? It was a small pilot in Haiti. We're doing a year-long project. We're bringing this to the Philippines. The Philippines has an incredibly high literacy rate in the 90s, which is great. Personal financial literacy is determined as a big need at the facility where we're working, so that's what we just did a needs assessment and are rolling out a curriculum now. And I think there are a couple of really key pieces to the work that we're doing. First of all, that it's responsive rather than that we're dictating, okay, this is what we think you need. That really comes out of these collaborations and conversations with our vendor partners. And the second part is that those are the strong partnerships. None of this would be possible without those kind of relationships of trust, of longevity, and being able to have that open communication about what's going to be able to sustain this long-term relationship. So really that's the key element, I think, to making it successful, because ultimately we're not running the program. Our partners, the vendor on the ground, the business there is running the program. They have to be just as invested and see the value in it. So it can't really come from us. So the next piece I'm going to talk about supply chain transparency. So this also came from the idea, okay, we're focusing on artisans and improving artisans' lives, but not just specifically on that. What about all the workers who are making our products, and how do we raise the level of conversation around that? And we found that, the best way to do that was to work with external third-party certifiers to be able to verify that to consumers. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Fairtrade USA and their work, but you've probably seen it on chocolate, you've seen it on coffee. They launched an apparel program about a couple of years ago. Patagonia has a few Fairtrade styles out and is scaling that work. Prana is one of the Fairtrade apparel companies. We were the first home retailer in the Fairtrade network. We're the first very Fairtrade certified rugs. So this was in 2013. At this point, we have two factories Fairtrade certified in India. We started in India because that's where their main operation is. This is in Panipat, a rug vendor that we've also worked with for years. We also have a bedding vendor in the south that's a primarily female workforce that's Fairtrade certified. So what Fairtrade does is they go in and they verify the fair wages are being paid, the health and safety of the work conditions, and then there's a premium that the brand pays that's embedded in the cost of goods, but that goes directly into a bank account that is controlled by an elected committee of workers. So this is a picture of one of the first worker committee meetings. Now, a lot of the groups that we work with, in the artisan population, it could be at least 50% women. In rugs happens to be an industry where the tufting and the weaving is primarily men, the finishing is female. So in the bedding factory in the south, the committee meetings look very different. The woman on the right is Padma Japai. She works for Fairtrade USA. So it's about a 6 to 12 month process of getting a facility certified. It's a huge investment on the vendor's part and on the brand part. And this is one of the first Fairtrade committee meetings. There's a couple of management representation on the committee. And so the committee collectively decides how to invest this fund that the brand has paid directly into their bank account. And usually it's on communal expenses. They could choose to take it as wages if they wanted, but Fairtrade works with them to think about community projects that they might want to invest in. And so the first that they received, they decided that no one should be eligible unless they've been at the facility for a year, which this was the workers decided themselves, and I think that was pretty remarkable in a high turnover industry like the rug industry. And they wanted to contribute to purchase a supplemental health insurance program for themselves and their families. So they contributed a portion, they took the rest from the premiums, and then the vendor himself contributed a portion, so they have this additional healthcare coverage that gave them the flexibility to choose healthcare providers and get out-of-state coverage. And the second premiums, they decided they spent about 10% of their income on transportation, and 40 minutes a day, so decided to buy bicycles for everyone in the facility to get to and from work. So that's how they decided to invest the funds. The facility in the south too, it's a primarily female workforce, a little bit older. A lot of them have side businesses, and so they've expressed interest in starting a microfinance fund that they can borrow from, or some kind of loan fund that they can borrow from to grow their supplemental businesses. And we have pretty aggressive growth plans for the fair trade, to about 40% of our assortment by 2019, 2020. So we're actively working to expand it and bring on new vendors into the program. And this too, I would say, like the education programs, the absolute key element is the relationship with the vendor. It has to be one of trust, it has to be one of transparency, and it's about building this sustainable relationship. And then the last piece, sustainability, we've long talked about becoming a little bit greener every day. It's been a motto of West Elm's. It's on our website. It's something that, again, has been really just sort of ingrained in the brand from the beginning. But we recently worked with a group of students from MIT to kind of take a look and say, how can we really push it to the one step further and look from a materials standpoint? Because as a brand, that's really what we control, is the raw materials that we use. So one is increasing our use of certified materials like FSC certified products. And then the other is exploring the certification of new kind of material types. So for example, we use a lot of mango wood in our products, and it's a byproduct of the food industry. So mango trees are not as fruitful, literally like 7 to 10 years. They have to be cut down. So it actually is a byproduct. How do you apply the standards that might be used for agriculture to then the end product, or the waste of that, which is the tree and the wood that's used in products. So exploring what are new materials that we can use, what are existing materials that we can really demonstrate the chain of custody and convey that to consumers. And then how do we also connect consumers more with really what's behind kind of some of those messages, because I think that's a huge and important element. So for example, this is the beginning of one of our products. It's FSC certified recycled shipping pallets, and it just shows a little bit of the production process. They're like literally the shipping pallets, pulling it apart, they're glued together and routed, and it shows how great design can really lead to something that's desirable. You can turn waste into something that's really desirable and wanted. So we think behind kind of all of the consciousness initiatives that we do is really this idea of what we do best, which is design and bring products to market, and using that power and our purchasing power to drive the kind of change in communities and for workers that we see. So we have a lot to do on the sustainability front, on all of the fronts. I mean, a lot of this is just kicking off and getting started, but it's always great to have that kind of potential ahead. So then I just wanted to round it out a little before we go into some questions about. I can just tell you a little bit more about my path. I mean, it was kind of covered there, but so up until now, I've worked my entire career in the nonprofit sector. First in the arts, nonprofit art gallery in Lower Manhattan, and then I was the deputy director of a magazine and think tank that covers economic development, housing, social services in New York. And that's where I learned a lot of the workforce development theory and economic development theory that I'm applying here as well. And after about 7 years working in the nonprofit sector, before that I studied history and women's studies, but I never really worked in anything gender related till much later. I went to live in Spain, learned Spanish. I didn't really know that that would come in such use later. So I kind of, had this path where I just followed the things that I loved to do and was interested in. Then I came to New York and I worked in the arts and for the policy think tank. And at the think tank, there are a couple things happened. One was, even though I'd been drawn to work in the nonprofit sector because of my ideological commitment to the issues that we were covering, I felt kind of removed from that in my day-to-day life. Like I could be working for any kind of business, and so how could I feel more engaged in what I was doing? And the second piece is I felt kind of creatively isolated in a way. I've always designed and made my own jewelry. And that was something that was just separate from what my work was, and I wanted more of an integration or creative outlet in my work. And then also, I was the deputy director of this $1 million+ organization. We had a side business within it that was a classified advertising service that was like a $300,000 business. It was just like one of the many things I did. And I never had learned anything about accounting. I taught myself all of the accounting that we needed, the grant writing, everything that you needed to run a business. And I was like, why do people treat nonprofits like it's not a business? It really is. It's just where the bottom line goes. So I figured at that point I'd been in the workforce about 10 years, and I was like, I really want to get a master's. I don't want to kind of be restricted just by what my past experience is. And I decided to go back to school and get an MBA. And for some people it was a total non sequitur. Others understood it, but I'd always had that business inclination in mind, and I felt like that was a valuable experience for me to pursue. And while I was in school, I just focused on the things that I loved to do, which was the social enterprise component. So I did nothing out of obligation. I knew I really wanted to switch to more international work because that was always a passion of mine, but I'd been mostly focused on local economic development. And in the summer in between my 2 years, I got an internship working in Managua with Agora Partnerships, which invests in, it's a capacity building organization for small and medium-sized enterprises. So the idea, if you build that sector, you're able to build a viable pipeline of businesses that can grow and create employment. And they saw the jewelry on my background and said, we have this great project we want you to consult with. It's called Nika Hope, and they work with youth in the garbage dump neighborhood, La Chureca, to keep them in school. It has an incredibly high dropout rate. Kids drop out to sort trash and earn $2 a day to bring home to their families. So in exchange for staying in school, they participate in after-school activities, one of which is jewelry making, and they can earn some income to bring back to their families. So I worked with them on identifying the styles that sold, where are their sales coming from, how do you narrow it down, and to me that was the perfect match of the ideology meets, the business sensibility meets the mission and the creative aspect. So I really thought that's what I want to work in. And as I was getting ready to graduate from business school, everyone else was like recruiting, and I kind of, I didn't do any of that. I was lucky enough to be introduced to the women who had founded Global Goods Partners. So it's a nonprofit. We work with more than 40 different artisan groups around the world. And they had started it about 5 years before and wanted to really take it to the next level, and they needed someone with the skill set that I'd gotten in business school. And I have to say the business school curriculum is best for running a small business. You learn a little bit of everything, which is what you needed, to really scale a business. So I did everything there, from some design, inventory management, managed our e-commerce site, the relationships and purchase order system, analyzing the sales strategy, a little bit of everything. And it's been fascinating now at West Elm to see, like, the scale is much larger, but a lot of those basic concepts and ideas are the same. So I was there for about 3.5 years, and I started to feel like, okay, I'm working and investing so much, and the purchase orders that we write for artisan groups are relatively small. And the only way to grow my job is to grow a whole organization, which is kind of exhausting. And imagine the impact that you could have from inside the corporate sector. And around that time, or actually about a year before, at Global Goods Partners, we were founding members of an alliance at the Aspen Institute to support the artisan sector. It's the Alliance for Artisan Enterprise. And West Elm was a founding member too, because at that same time, West Elm, the president, and key staff were thinking, of how do we really bring this commitment that we've made to artisan groups to the next level. And they eventually found that form in Clinton Global Initiative through that. But they were also a founding member of the Alliance. So I'd known them for about a year. I saw how committed they were to the cause. And when I started thinking about changing, it was actually a friend of mine in a conversation. She said, "What about West Elm? You know, they're doing such amazing stuff with artisan groups." And I was like, "You're right," and I know so many of the people there. So we've kind of known each other for a year. And then it just kind of worked out. We had a meeting at West Elm. I shared my plans with the women at Global Goods. I wanted it to be transparent. I mean, if you're in a small company, and I knew that I was probably going to work in the industry, and it would be best to just say, let's work out a transition plan, you know, a multi-month transition plan that works for both of us. So it happened to be called to a meeting at West Elm, and basically just said, I want a job, pitched it. And I happened, luckily, to be connected to my current boss now, who is the SVP of Strategy and Sourcing. And, you know, he was like, what would you do for us? And I said, I just read Sheryl Sandberg's book, and I remember she had said that she was really impressed when people would be like, what do you need? And so I was like, anything, you know, I can do this, this, this. And he's like, you know, specifically with the artisan, because I didn't really understand how it worked with, you know, how all the departments worked within West Elm. Now I have clearly so much more insight into that, nor actually do I fit into any of those departments. And that was, so he called me back a week later and said, you know, you don't really fit into any of those. I wouldn't want to start you in that, but we're about to make this Clinton Global Initiative commitment. I think they were seeing how the world of nonprofit and governmental relationships is a world unto its own and a very particular skill set. In a sense, they needed a translator and someone to manage that. And so basically, I was able to kind of leverage that nonprofit and social sector knowledge and the best practices that you learn from how do you actually structure. An education program in Haiti is basically a grant, but it's not out of a foundation. It's, you know, an investment. It's a business investment, but it's structured like a grant. So how do you take the best of the nonprofit sector and apply it in a corporate environment? And so that is basically the path that I took, but it wasn't, so it was, he didn't say, oh, you're hired tomorrow. It actually, he said, write a job description, I wrote, and then there was about a many-month wait period, you know, while it went through the infrastructure. It was a totally new position. It's a new department, and I'd had a different offer. I turned down. I took the risk. So it wasn't like some kind of, it fell in my lap. I really actually pursued it, took a lot of risks, sat with the uncertainty. And the other aspect is that, you know, if you're so emotionally engaged in your job, when it was time for me to leave Global Goods, for example, it becomes like an existential crisis. So, you know, I'm really connected to the artisan groups that we work with. I'm very emotionally committed. So that's kind of one aspect to know and to manage about having that kind of emotional investment in your job. So these were just a few things that I was thinking about in terms of kind of advice in careers that, you know, I know a lot of people sometimes say do things as a stepping stone. I don't believe in that, but, you know, it might work for some people. I don't know. I just don't think you should waste time doing things that you're not, like, you know, 100% committed into. To think outside the box. You know, a position might not be there and could be created. And, you know, it was the unique combination of experience in economic development and workforce development in the arts. At Global Goods, I used a lot of the Spanish that I learned living in Spain. All of that work combined, you know, created a portfolio for me to be able to bring to the jobs that I do now. Take risks, because you're never really gonna reap the reward if you don't. I've seen a lot of people get nervous and take things that aren't really what they're passionate about, and then it's very hard to work out of that. Always be generous with your ideas and energy. That was eventually my West Elm job. I never thought I was courting a job in the beginning, but I was sharing information, and I think as generous as you can be about that, it will come back to you tenfold. And try new things, you know, particularly early in your career, take those risks. I mean, for me, I went with an MBA and an MBA debt load to work in a nonprofit. And it was a stressful couple of years, you know, but I knew that this was going to be an experience that I may not want to do later, but that would be very valuable at that time. So that's all I have.